Hunters, look, the good news is that Sundered Doctrine is a much easier solo experience than Vesper's Host was. The bad news is that you're still probably the worst class to solo, but it's not really by that much. Welcome to the Solo Sundered Doctrine Guide, a much more manageable solo dungeon experience, one of the more manageable ones of recent memory. Today, we are going to go through on every class and talk about how to tackle this place. While I do try to have my strategies be as simple as possible, and I try to limit advanced build crafting, advanced gameplay mechanics, and try to limit armor swapping, this is still a solo dungeon, and I'll be assuming that you have some high quality armor and weapons to work with. It's not impossible to do this place with lower quality gear, but it will take you much longer to complete. The first encounter, while not terribly difficult and not actually that long, will feel that long. The only differences between each class when it comes to completing this encounter is the build you choose to bring. I will be suggesting some builds for each class, but if you find yourself preferring a build already, by all means, use it. All of the knowledge of beating this encounter is mainly in memorizing the paths of least lenses, so I would definitely have a map on hand to assist you if you haven't occupied your brain with this most crucial of information. Titans. I had Peregrine Greaves suggested to me as a way to one-shot the subjugators, and I actually quite liked it. Just make sure you actually activate the Peregrine effect because it can be easy to lose track of whether you have it active or not. Try to take cover behind everything that you can on your approach so that they don't blast you in the face or slow you or anything like that. A slow from any enemy may leave you in a bad spot. If you do want to play it safer, hazardous propulsion is a great play as you should have 6 rockets prepared every time, and these rockets do a lot of damage. Warlocks. I think a more evergreen option will be Prismatic unless it gets some insane nerfs going into the future. Getaway Artist Prismatic Warlock is a very stable, strong build who don't need no man. However, while Arc Warlock is as strong as it is in Episode 3, and while the artifact is heavily featuring Arc bonuses, I think if you're capable of running Arc Warlock, you really should. Geomags and Delicate Tomb is generating what should be illegal amounts of super energy thanks to the Ionic Traces, so killing subjugators should be no problem at all. And even if you don't have a super available, Delicate Tomb should be deleting massive chunks of health off of any target. Hunters, I went with a more classic build with a regular arc melee setup with Liar's Handshake and Tractor Cannon. Tractor Cannon suppresses the subjugators for a bit, and as long as you know how to stack up combination blow, dodge punch, you should be able to level these dudes without much issue. You can do prismatic variants if you would like as well, no issues there. I did also want to avoid any specific exotic class items to make the build crafting experience less annoying, but obviously if you have something good, feel free to use it. So where are you going to die in this encounter? Number 1, subjugators. If you get hit with a suspend, if you get hit by a shatter, these guys hurt really bad. They can kill you. I know it seems like they can't, but they totally can, so be careful around them. Number 2, I think, is honestly the husks. If you don't take them seriously, they can push you around, they can trap you between them, you might be sandwiched between them and a subjugator. Just be careful, especially the worms that they let out after they die. If you like AoE a bunch of them, and you got like 7 worms coming at you and you're low health, it might get a little dicey. And honestly, those are just the big 2, right? There's always a chance that you die to like the light beam or regular enemies. You know, they do hurt pretty bad as well, but I think the odds are low there. Otherwise, I really don't have much to discuss on this encounter because whether you're solo or in a group, the objective is the same. Put the lenses in the holsters. There are small ways to optimize the lens experience, I suppose, but we're not really here to optimize. We're here to just get the thing done. Only other thing I would brush up on is maybe being able to deduce which symbols you're going to need based on the 4 that are given to you when you go to each room, but even that isn't a big deal. It is just not that exciting of an encounter. I'm not going to talk about the transitional areas in this video. Just don't be dumb. Like, don't rush the Indiana Jones parts. There's zero reason to after that slog of a first encounter. The second encounter is the true test of this place, where if you can beat this, you can definitely beat the final boss. Couple of different strategies you can do here, but I'm going to talk about the one that I went with a little more in depth than the ones that I did not go with. The 3 options that you have available to you, as far as I'm aware, are the YOLO left side strat, the slow left side strat, or the fast right side strat. The YOLO left side strat is probably not something I'm going to recommend to most people. As the name implies, it is the YOLO strat, where you just insta-lock in kill on the far left side wheel within the first cycle, and you just deal with whatever happens. This can make for a very fast encounter, but it can also make for a very unmanageable encounter if you don't know what you're doing, especially if your damage is weak. You might see speedrunners or high-skill players run this setup, but if you're watching this video, I'd probably avoid it. The slow left side strat is where you try to lock in stop on the other 3 panels, while also keeping stop on as many wheels as possible, and then drop in kill on the left. While this strategy is a bit more reasonable, I did not end up liking it as much as the strategy we'll discuss, because it can lead to potential moments of uncertainty. It felt like if one thing goes wrong in the chain, that the room can just become an uncontrollable mess of enemies, overwhelming you completely, and the last thing that you want in a solo encounter is to be overwhelmed completely. The strategy that I embraced most of all was a short damage phase repeated over and over by dunking in kill on the right side as fast as possible. I used burst damage via a super and parasite in order to deal big bursts of damage to the boss in this short window. This allowed me to maintain better control over the enemies and the arena during the fight. If you don't have Parasite, you might want something like Grand Overture as your burst option, although it is a bit more ammo intense and more annoying to charge up. On all characters, I used Midnight Coup and a Baron Action, the solar sidearm from episode 1, with Heal Clip and Incandescent. I really wanted a solar weapon to easily deal with wizards, specifically their shields. If you don't have a Baron Action, some kind of a solar primary will likely also be okay. You're mainly looking for solar damage. Midnight Coup is just my personal primary of choice right now. If you have something else that you prefer, then use it by all means. On Titan, I tried to do Insurmountable Skull Fort and Cuirass swaps to maximize my T-Crash damage, while using Skull Fort and Thunderclaps in the meantime to not only keep me healthy, but to also take out the waves of enemies that spawn in. If you don't want to do swaps, especially since the timing can be a little rushed for it, it can be a little weird, then I would probably just stick with Skull Fort. Your goal should be staying alive here. If you just want to stick with Cuirass, that's also fine, just make sure you're punching a lot for knockout procs. On Hunter, I went Prismatic with Storm's Edge, Gifted Conviction, and Parasite. Gifted Conviction was paired with Ascension and Stylus Executioner in order to give myself a way to go invis while also throwing out some damage into the arena when I needed it. That being said, I don't think Gifted Conviction is crucial to success here at all, and your options are pretty open, especially if you have like some kind of exotic class item if you want to use something else. I didn't use Nighthawk because crits aren't working properly on this boss, and I don't know if or when it'll be fixed, so if it is ever fixed, then Nighthawk is probably going to be the play. On Warlock, the evergreen option is going to be something like Parasite and Prismatic Getaway Artist Warlock with some Nova Bomb action, same concept as the others, but with all the benefits and safety of Getaway Warlock. However, again, while Arc Warlock is as strong as it is in episode 3, if you feel comfortable doing so, I would highly suggest running Arc Warlock. Basically the same build as the previous encounter. Delicate Tomb will burst down the wizards without much issue, provide tons of Ionic Traces to get your super to the point where you will have it every single damage phase, if not even more often than that. Not only that, but there is a spot where you can position yourself to hit multiple, even all of the lock set targets at the same time, which we will go over. If you can manage to get to this spot every time, this fight can be done in 4 to 5 phases, which is not even 10 minutes long. As of this video, there is a laundry list of stuff that is and is not working on this boss in terms of buffs, debuffs, all that stuff. I did not try to get too fancy here. At the most, I had a couple of seconds of Radiant on Hunter, and I used Solar Holster in my boots for Parasite and my sidearm. I would not worry about getting fancy either. I like to hang out in the middle of the arena by the stairs, but remember that a group of enemies will spawn behind you right at the very start, and every so often. The first couple of waves can be the toughest in the encounter, and that completely depends on what the right side lock requires you to do. If you need 3 knowledge to get to kill, you are going to need to move very, very fast because you're only going to have 3 knowledge available to you. You go left first, then middle, then right. I have had attempts where I've had to get 3 knowledge in back-to-back damage phases, and while that's not super common, if this is your flawless run, you gotta be ready for it. Anything less than 3 is much easier to handle, but you still need to stay very focused. After the second lock starts looking at its target, you should have wizards spawn in, nuke them with your aberrant action or other solar weapon, and be ready to take out the acolytes next to them as well. You should be doing as much as possible to keep the arena clear of enemies in the middle and on the right. In fact, as long as you avoid even going over to the left side of the arena, most of those enemies will completely ignore you, save for the occasional wandering knight or maybe a wizard at the front of the room or something like that. In between the second and third lock on the timer should be around when you're dunking your knowledge into the right side, while also clearing out enemies to keep things safe. I can pretty safely say that once that timer hits 75% on the meter, if you are not actively dropping in the knowledge into the wheel, that you have missed the window, and you are going to need to wait for it to cycle through again. That is not an automatic loss though. When the lock breaks, it's damage time. If you're on Parasite, you're going to want to aim the shot pretty high and in between both of the locks in order to hit both. If you're on a Titan, throw down a Storm's Keep barricade, sit behind it, get a bolt charge, and then slam a T-Crash right into the lock. When you're out, you might have the ability to shoot another Parasite Worm in the middle for a small amount of damage. It's better than nothing, but don't risk your life for it. If you're on Hunter, you send the Parasite, then Storm's Edge in between the 2 locks. It's the same thing as Titan, just a different super. If you're on Warlock and you're doing Parasite, it's the same thing. Shoot, drop your Nova, get to safety. If you're on Arc Warlock, you are going to take a different route. You want to make your way up to the top of the doorway on the right side of the arena, and then use that to jump off of in order to get into position. Follow along on screen here. You want to eventually be closer to the wall where you're sandwiched in between the boss and the wall. Keep eyes on the lock on the other side of the room because you're gonna want to aim at that one. Once you're level with the boss and you're sandwiched in between the wall and the boss, pop your Chaos Reach. You will know if you're hitting multiple targets or potentially all of them if the boss's health meter just melts away. If not, you likely aren't hitting the opposite side boss or aren't in the best position. Fortunately, at the rate you can get your super back, you should be able to try again on the next one. Once the damage phase concludes, you're just going to do it all over again. Be aware of enemies on the left side shooting at you when you're coming down and getting back into position, and be sure to check the wheel on the right to see where kill is immediately after it switches so you can get some kind of a head start. Over time, you should get more and more knowledge just sitting on the floor so that you can pick it up and immediately slam it where it needs to go, which sounds like a benefit. Just make sure you're not accidentally picking it up as you're moving around. I like this method because as long as you're keeping pace, you shouldn't ever really get into a spot where the playfield is uncontrollable. It should always be relatively calm, or at the very least, not infested with ogres and knights everywhere. That being said, it is still an active fight. You shouldn't have a ton of downtime while the meter is filling up, and you need to stay focused the whole time on slaying out and checking your knowledge stacks and making sure you're doing what you need to do. Now, if you do mess up and you don't get kill in the right side, that is okay, but there is going to be some cleanup required to get back to neutral. I decided to go for kill in the closer right side wheel, which was a little bit safer, which gives you a longer damage phase. That is something to be aware of. The boss will be active and shooting you for much longer than a usual damage phase would last. If you do get ogres to spawn, the one on the left will eventually make their way towards you, and you will likely have to deal with them, to the point where I was a bit more proactive and just sought it out on my own and killed it. Do not be afraid to use your super or your parasite shot to remove them. Even on normal, they are a very big threat. They are probably the biggest threat. Just be advised that the parasite shot has a very large AoE component, so make sure you're keeping your distance. Finally, non-warlocks should be aiming to have their super for every other damage phase, and it'll be very close unless your build focuses specifically on generating super energy. If you don't have your super right as you start a damage phase, I would probably try to avoid squeezing it in at the last second because you might waste it, and then you have to wait another 2 cycles to get it back. So, what's going to kill you? My number 1 is the Ogre, if they spawn in. They hurt really bad, and I find it very easy to underestimate them. Do not. They cannot really be crowd controlled at all. They have a fair amount of health. Make sure you're taking them seriously. Number 2 is the boss. Yes, each individual shot from the boss barely hurts, but it is very easy to zone out during the transition from the damage phase back to the prep phase. And if you're just caught out, running back and forth, not really sure what to do, it is very easy to just eat a bunch of damage and die. Try to hide or get to cover after the boss goes immune because there is no reason to leave yourself exposed in this transitionary period. Number 3 is just kind of everything else. Wizards, attendants, acolytes, knights that will aggressively run at you if they see you. These enemies are all pretty weak when it comes to their health, but their damage is still a threat. Wizards should be priority 1 most of the time, with Grim being annoying enough to be my number 2 priority. Even though you're going to be doing a lot of phases, this fight should not last a super long time, although, again, it might feel like it. I'll give you some examples of what some cycles of this fight look like on all of the classes. This is definitely a fight I would get some reps on before going for the solo flawless, though.
Yes, artifact mod, okay. That's actually not the worst that I'm not utilizing an artifact mod right now. We need 1. Easy. Okay. Ribbon, skibbin. And then you hit him with the meow. Okay. There we go. Schwunk. Okay, just gonna hide in the corner. Kind of like a hiding in the corner guy. Little up. It's a little easier to see it from here. Yeah. Okay. I have done it for myself. I tried it. I did not like it. And if there's one thing I've learned, is that if I like the way that I'm doing something and everyone's like, no, you should really try it this other way. It's like, nope, I'm going to keep doing it the way that I like to do it, because that's just what's working for me. I learned my lesson with Shattered Throne all those years ago. The lesson will stay learned. The one in the middle. Okay, I gotta lock back in. I gotta lock back in for this one. Lock back in.
The final boss is just kind of a pushover when it comes to final bosses. You will struggle much more with the second encounter compared to this one, in my opinion, so if you're here, don't worry, the hard part's over. While we are in episode 3, I recommend pretty much every class to just use Queenbreaker with particle reconstruction in the artifact. I used it on every single class. It's really strong. You need to do maybe 1 reload. It hits pretty hard. I really don't have any more to say. Without Particle, you will definitely need a couple more cycles of this boss to bring them down. But if you're watching this after episode 3 is over, consult the current meta. I'm sure I have or will have a video on something. Otherwise, I stuck with my Midnight Coup and some kind of either Rocket Sidearm or Psychopomp, but I used Psychopomp on my Titan, and there was really no good reason for me to use it. I just did because I wanted to. Really, you should just probably use a Rocket Sidearm. Titans. I stayed on Arc while episode 3 is juicing up Bolt Charge, but outside of episode 3, consult the current meta. It would not surprise me if the evergreen strategy here is to just go Prismatic Titan, especially if Consecration has not gotten another nerf. If it has, then I'll likely have some kind of content discussing whatever the best current build is or the build of the month is. Note that I did try to do some swaps with Hazardous Propulsion and Curus. Hazardous Propulsion rockets will nuke the Subjugators, significantly speeding up this encounter for you, and that should be true going into the future as well. Warlocks, same deal. Abuse how good Arc is while in episode 3, and abuse how good Geomags are. I went with Midnight Coup, Indebted Kindness, Queenbreaker, focus on Ionic Trace generation as usual. The evergreen option, again, will be Prismatic Getaway Artist until Bungie either nerfs it or something even better comes along. Be sure to pop Transcendence during your DPS phase for more weapon damage. I did this fight with both builds. They're both great. Hunters. I just stuck with Prismatic the entire time, swapping from Gifted Conviction to Celestial Nighthawk during the damage phase. You will have plenty of time to make swaps in this encounter, so I think doing smaller swaps like this is a much more reasonable request. Mod-wise, I used Siphons and Heavy Ammo Finder in my head, some reload and ability recharge stuff in my arms, Solar Strand Stasis Resistances in my chest piece. I used 1 Surge mod, 1 Recuperation mod, and 1 Scav mod in my boots, along with a Time Dilation. I did not really do any other swaps here. If there is a fight to do loadout swapping, it is this one, because you will have all of the time in the world while the shield depletes in order to do so. Just remember that a lot of time passes in between activating the wheel and being able to finally shoot the boss, so keep track of your armor charge and orbs of power on the ground. All that being said, every class handles this fight in the exact same way. You just do the mechanic, and you get to the damage phase, and you shoot a Queenbreaker. I played this fight the exact same way on every class. I really don't have any special details on a per class basis other than to just use what your class and build offers you in this encounter. If you're a Getaway Warlock, you drop grenades. If you're an Arc Titan, you drop some Hazardous Propulsion walls. If you're a Prismatic Hunter, you do Prismatic Hunter stuff. You should have some working knowledge of how your build works if you have made it this far. You should also have a map handy if you haven't memorized the locations of all the symbols here. And also, do not be afraid to double check the true-false statement with the Truth Seeker, whatever it's called. And again, take the Subjugators seriously. They can and will pop you without hesitation. Titan, those hazardous rockets do wonders here. Just make sure that they are going to be locking onto the Subjugators. Clear some space out. Arc Warlocks, you should be getting your super so frequently that you can use your super on both Subjugators in both rooms and still be able to get it back for a damage phase. Prismatic Warlocks should just drop their turrets on them. Hunters, if you're not running some kind of a melee type setup, then Subjugators might be a bit more annoying, but if you save your abilities for them, they won't be too bad to take down. One specific piece of advice that I have, and one of the #1 things I think could cause a problem in this encounter, is when you are activating the wheel in the middle, clear out the dread enemies nearby. They will attempt to slow you, and getting caught in a slow while you're trying to get into position is super annoying. If you do get caught in a slow, it is a very good idea to just hide underneath by going downstairs in the middle of the room, than trying to force getting into position. In terms of getting into position for damage, I really liked using the right side of the room in that corner. as I felt there was a good amount of cover and the boss rarely got too in your face, not to mention that after the room got lit on fire again, you usually had a good sightline to keep firing. I know a lot of people like using the left side, some people going on top of the left side doorway against the wall. All those are fine, it just depends on what's working for you, and this is what was working for me. When the boss is attacking you, be ready for their yoink, their pull. When you see them casting this attack, all you gotta do is just walk backwards, and you should dodge it without much issue. If you gotta stop shooting, that's fine, because you're gonna lose more time getting back into position if you get yoinked versus just waiting a sec and then starting again. Titans. I know it seems really tempting to Thunder Crash, but I would only do it if the boss is in an ideal position. Doing it at the start can lead to a situation where you're spending a lot of time running back to safety, so I like to wait until the boss got closer to me. Just note that when they are at low health, they really won't get close to you, so you're probably just going to want to save it as your finisher. The odds are decent that they will suspend you after the T-Crash, so try to get away as quickly as possible afterwards. Try to T-Crash sooner rather than later. The later it gets into a phase, the less I think you should use it because you do not want to get caught out. Trust your gut. If you think it's a bad idea to T-Crash at a given moment, it likely is. One extra damage phase is better than having to run the whole dungeon over again. Arc Warlocks, I would just start with your super and then go straight into Queenbreaker. I actually preferred not to use an Ionic Sentry on the boss, as I found the boss would greatly stagger sometimes, which messed up my shots. Prismatic Warlocks, cast Song of Flame for some Radiant, interweave it with Transcendence, and just plink away with Queenbreaker. Hunters, you're going to swap to Celestial, pop them in the noggin, and then just get to plinking with Queenbreaker. Make sure you pop Transcendence as well for that bonus weapon damage. Number one thing that'll kill you here is the Subjugators. Don't make me say it a fourth time. They hurt. They hurt real bad. They will kill you. Number two thing here, I think it might be the Threadlings. I'm going to put it up here. It's probably not going to happen because they're super easy to get away from. But if you get lazy, if you get complacent, they can jump you real easily. You know, you're shooting like 2 full chains worth of Threadlings and they're just chasing you around and you're not taking them seriously. Like, realistically, you should not be dying to these, but just don't underestimate them. Number 3 is the boss. The boss is very mobile, and they can catch you off guard, especially if you're coming up from the middle room. If you get caught in their suspend, do not be afraid to super if you can. Even if just for the brief damage reduction. I'm mainly looking at you, Titans. Yes, you should T-Crash out of there. There's no reason to take that risk. Number 4 shouldn't be the room getting lit on fire, but I could see a world where people are rushing to get into the right position and they're not keeping track of their health, or maybe they get yoinked by the boss into the fire. If you think you're not going to make it to your position in time, trust that instinct and get to a new location and then get to the proper position after the room is safe. Having to run a few extra feet and being late to a damage phase is much less annoying than having to run the dungeon again. I will show you a cycle of this fight as well, but it's really not that bad. It's one of the easier final dungeon bosses we've had in a while. You should be able to take down this boss in, like, I want to say 5 to 7 cycles as of episode 3 anyway. It's definitely doable in 4 with great damage phases using one of these setups here. It's still a long fight, but it is one where I think you have a good amount of control basically the entire time. But it's also not as long as some of the more recent final bosses, to many people's relief. So, there you have it, solo Sundered. If you have been exhausted by the prospect of soloing some of the more recent dungeons, I would say that this one is one to get back into the game with. I beat it on my first actual attempt. It does not take that much to learn these encounters when you're by yourself, so get the hell back in there and give this one a try. Thank you very much for watching. I will see you next time.
The witness is in a constant state of orgy. Yeah, but like everyone, I feel like everyone's just kind of sad the whole time. Okay, well, the Traveler does not give the hive, so. I mean, you know what I'm gonna do? I think I'm just gonna Giga Beam this guy and see how fast I can get my super back. There's like 3 of them. Just come to me, my children. think Hive is over here. We also have Traveler. Do 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 do. You're a butt. Where is the employment? Oh my god. It's like they literally run away from you. Okay, Traveler. Nope. Do. I'm asking Bife right now. Yeah, Destiny's just not very, like... Oh my god, I almost went in there. It's not a very sexual game. Which I appreciate. Oh, that was a monster freaking melee, dude. Wait, I didn't... Oh, I turned Hive to Guardian to Hive. I need to turn Guardian to Hive. Thought I did that, man. Oh, it's 3. Okay. Just dropping that so I can escape. Nice meme. Datto hit a headshot challenge. Give is underneath. Yep. So look at all the Maragunas. Yeah, but like the community did that to itself. It wasn't like Bungie was like, you know, what if we put Marasov in a bikini? Like, it's all the community driven. Okay, let's see how damage phase goes. And pop my super. Oh, I guess I didn't make any changes to my like time dilation or nothing. Probably should do that. Time dilation. Create some orbules. Orb. That's kind of cringe, honestly. But it gave me another orb, so. Yeah, I'm just gonna go back to my spot. Actually, you know what? I'll go to the left spot just to show it. But I like to go over there. Holy. Dude, he is bumbling and stumbling, man. Just don't shoot me. Just please do not shoot me. Okay, yeah, I really do not like this spot. Personally, I don't like it. I really didn't turn it on. I hit the switch, I spun the thing, it's still not on. Did I not hit it? I could have sworn I hit the thing, man. Normal order at Wendy's is a Baconator meal, medium. Baconator meal, medium. Your drink, whatever you're feeling. I change it up. Sometimes it's Dr. Pepper, sometimes it's a regular Coke. Sometimes it's something completely random. And then I usually get either a 6 or 10 piece chicken nugget with barbecue sauce, depending on how hungry I am. Neat. Witness on, witness on, witness on. Did I see a 22? I haven't been getting Frosties as much because I've been trying to tone down the sweets intake, but, you know, if I've had a day, I'll do it. Cool, that hit nothing. Chocolate or vanilla? Usually chocolate. Okay, full ammo. I'm gonna hope that 8 shots does it. It does. Don't forget to swap. Don't forget to swap. Okay. Unfortunately, I don't think I'm going to be able to get it. Okay, here's where we swap. Cool, got him. Damn, the radiant's kind of huge if you can nail it. Okay. All that, 2 phases in with like 2 scuffed as hell goldies. That's pretty good, man.